President Helen Rodriguez stood in the emergency session room deep beneath the Global Defense Council headquarters in Geneva. Around the oval table sat Earth's most powerful military and political leaders, their faces grim as they watched the recorded footage from Harmony. Point. The holographic display showed Zilithian soldiers boarding the Terra Nova while Jake Morrison's voice narrated the events. General Robert Blake, head of Earth's military forces, slammed his fist on the table. This is an act of war. They attacked our diplomatic vessel, threatened our personnel, and humiliated us in front of the entire galaxy. Admiral Susan Torres, commander of Earth's small space fleet, shook her head. We have 12 ships, General. They have thousands. If we declare war, we'll be wiped out in a week. So we do nothing? Dr. Amanda Price, Director of Strategic Intelligence, leaned forward. We let them think humans are weak and easily pushed around? President Rodriguez raised her hand for silence. What are our options, people? Real options, not wishful thinking. We could appeal to the Galactic Council, suggested Foreign Minister Carl Davis. What the Zilithians did was clearly illegal. The Council is afraid of them, Admiral Torres replied. Half the species there are under Zilithian protection. The other half are too weak to challenge them. Dr. Price activated her personal tablet. Madam President, there is another option, one that most people in this room don't know about. Explain. For the past 10 years, we've been running a classified program called Project Mirror. Every piece of alien technology we've encountered, we've studied, reverse engineered, and improved upon. General Blake looked skeptical. Improved how? These species have been spacefaring for thousands of years. That's exactly why we could improve their designs, Dr. Price replied. They've become comfortable with their technology. They haven't innovated in centuries. Human engineers looked at their systems with fresh eyes. She activated the room's main holographic projector. Images of strange-looking spacecraft appeared in the air above the table. These are the ships we've been building in secret facilities throughout the solar system. They use Centauri Federation power cores, Andromedan Republic shielding, Rigel clan weapon systems, and human computer networks that integrate everything better than the original species ever managed. President Rodriguez stared at the images. How many ships? 47 combat vessels of various classes, plus support ships, transports, and specialized craft. You built a secret fleet without telling anyone in this room? Admiral Torres looked outraged. The project was classified above your clearance level, Admiral. We needed absolute secrecy. General Blake stood up and walked around the table, studying the holographic ships. These look like they could actually fight Zilithian vessels. Better than fight them, Dr. Price said with a thin smile. Our simulations suggest these ships could defeat Zilithian forces in direct combat. Their technology is more advanced, but it's also more predictable. Our ships are designed to be unpredictable. What about crews? President Rodriguez asked. You can't run 47 ships with volunteers. We've been training crews for 5 years. Military personnel told they were part of experimental programs. They don't know the full scope, but they're ready. Foreign Minister Davis looked uncomfortable. This sounds like we've been preparing for war all along. We've been preparing for the possibility that diplomacy might fail, Dr. Price corrected. Which it just did. Admiral Torres studied the ship specifications on her tablet. These designs are impressive, but theory and practice are different things. Have any of these vessels been tested in actual combat? No, but neither have most Zilithian ships. They've been bullying weaker species for so long they haven't faced real opposition in decades. President Rodriguez walked to the window overlooking Lake Geneva. If we use these ships, we're not just fighting the Zilithians. We're changing humanity's position in the galaxy forever. The Zilithians already changed our position, General Blake said. They made us into targets. Now we have to decide if we're going to be victims or something else. Dr. Price cleared her throat. Madam President, there's more. Our intelligence networks have been monitoring Zilithian communications. What happened at Harmony Point wasn't random aggression. It was a test. A test of what? To see how humans respond to pressure. They're planning similar incidents with other human colonies and trading posts. They want to establish that humans can be pushed around with impunity. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Show me the fleet, President Rodriguez said finally. Dr. Price smiled and activated another sequence of images. Hidden bases throughout the solar system appeared on screen. Behind asteroids, inside hollow moons, even buried in the rings of Saturn. Construction facilities had been secretly building Earth's real space navy. The flagship is the Liberty, commanded by Captain Steve Nelson. It's twice the size of anything we've built before, with weapons and defenses that should surprise anyone who thinks humans are primitive. When could they be ready for combat? They're ready now. We've been waiting for authorization to reveal their existence. General Blake was studying tactical specifications. These ships carry more firepower than our entire public fleet combined. That's the idea, General. The galaxy thinks humanity has a dozen lightly armed vessels. They don't know about the ships that were built to fight. President Rodriguez returned to her seat. If we deploy these ships, people will die. Human people, alien people. Are we prepared for that responsibility? Madam President, Dr. Amanda Price said quietly, people are already dying. The Zilithians have been conducting illegal experiments on captured beings from dozens of species. Our intelligence suggests they're planning to expand these programs. What kind of experiments? The kind that violate every treaty about sentient rights. They're trying to develop biological weapons that target specific species. Foreign Minister Davis looked sick. How long have you known about this? 6 months. We've been gathering evidence, but without military force to back up accusations, the Galactic Council won't act. President Rodriguez made her decision. Admiral Torres, you're now in command of the real Earth fleet. General Blake, prepare ground forces for potential planetary operations. Dr. Price, I want full intelligence briefings on Zilithian military capabilities. And the diplomatic approach? Foreign Minister Davis asked. We'll try diplomacy one more time, but this time we'll negotiate from a position of strength. 3 days later, the galaxy received a shock when 47 unknown ships appeared at the edge of the Zilithian home system. They bore no familiar markings, used no recognizable technology signatures, and responded to hails with a simple message. This is Admiral Susan Torres of the Earth Defense Fleet. We demand the immediate release of all prisoners held in violation of galactic law. High Commander Vextar, watching from his flagship in orbit around Zilithia Prime, could not believe the sensor readings. Where did humans get warships like these? His tactical officer, a younger Zilithian named Kexdan, studied the incoming vessels. Commander, these ships don't match any known human designs. Their energy signatures are completely different from the vessels we've encountered. Are they using alien technology? Not exactly. They appear to be using components from multiple species but integrated in ways we've never seen before. Vextar's red eyes blazed with anger. Impossible. Humans are primitive. They barely understand their own technology, let alone ours. Commander, the lead vessel is requesting direct communication. Put them through. The main screen showed a human woman in a military uniform unlike anything the Zilithians had seen before. Her expression was calm but determined. High Commander Vexitar, I am Admiral Susan Torres. You have 72 hours to release all prisoners held in your research facilities and submit to Galactic Council inspection of your biological weapons programs. Vextar laughed, but it sounded forced. Admiral, you command impressive ships for a primitive species. Where did you acquire them? We built them, Torres replied simply. Just as we built the evidence of your war crimes that's now being transmitted to every council species. You're bluffing. Test me. The transmission ended, leaving Vextar staring at his tactical displays. 47 ships against his home fleet of over 200 vessels should be no contest, but something about those strange human ships made him hesitate. Kexdan, prepare the fleet for battle, but do not attack unless I give direct orders. Commander, surely you don't believe their threats? Vextar studied the human ships on his display. They hung in space like predators, not moving aggressively but somehow radiating menace. I believe, Kexdan, that we may have underestimated our opponents, and that could be a fatal mistake. Captain Steve Nelson stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the Zilithian fleet arrange itself into battle formation. 237 ships against his 47. By any normal calculation, the humans were outnumbered and outgunned. But Steve had learned long ago that normal calculations didn't always apply when humans were involved. Admiral Torres sends her compliments. His communications officer, Lieutenant Danny Murphy, reported. The ultimatum expires in 6 hours. Any response from the Zilithians? High Commander Vextar demands proof of our war crimes allegations. He says the Galactic Council has no authority over Zilithian internal affairs. Steve nodded. He had expected that response. Lieutenant Murphy, signal the fleet. Execute Operation Mirror. Across the human formation, ships began moving into positions that looked random to outside observers. But Steve knew each vessel was taking up coordinates calculated to maximize their tactical advantages while minimizing Zilithian strengths. Dr. Frank Martinez, the fleet's chief medical officer, joined Steve at the tactical display. "Captain, we're receiving distress signals from the planet's surface. Multiple sources, different species. The prisoners? Appears so. They're not trying to escape anymore. They're just asking someone to remember they existed." Steve felt the familiar cold anger that had driven him through years of secret training. The Zilithians hadn't just threatened humanity. They had been torturing innocent beings for decades while the galaxy looked the other way. "Dr. Martinez, prepare medical teams for possible rescue operations. We may have a lot of wounded to treat." On the far side of the system, Colonel Linda Shaw commanded the assault ship Phoenix. Her mission was different from the main fleet. While everyone watched the standoff between the two battle groups, her smaller, stealthier vessel would attempt to locate and free the prisoners. "Colonel," her tactical officer reported, "we've identified 17 separate facilities on the planet's surface, all heavily guarded, all showing signs of biological research." Linda studied the intelligence reports Dr. Price had provided. Each facility held between 50 and 200 prisoners from various species. Some had been captive for over 20 years. "Can we get them all?" "Not simultaneously. We'd need to hit them in sequence, and after the first rescue, they'll know we're coming. Then we make sure the first rescue counts. Target the largest facility first." Back on the Liberty, Steve received an update from Earth. President Rodriguez appeared on his private communication screen, her face showing the strain of the past week. "Captain Nelson, the Galactic Council is meeting in emergency session. Half the members are demanding immediate action against the Zilithians. The other half are too scared to act. What about military support? The Andromedan Republic is sending medical ships. The Rigel clans are offering warrior volunteers. Everyone else is staying neutral until they see who wins." Steve understood. Most galactic species had survived by avoiding conflicts between more powerful civilizations. They would support whoever emerged victorious, but only after the outcome was certain. "Madam President, are we authorized to engage?" "Steve, I'm giving you complete tactical discretion. Do what you think is right." The communication ended, leaving Steve with the weight of decision. In a few hours, he might start the first war humanity had fought against an alien species. The consequences would echo across the galaxy for generations. "Captain," Lieutenant Murphy called out, "incoming transmission from the Zilithian flagship." "Put it through." High Commander Vextar appeared on the main screen. His stone-gray face showed strain and his red eyes burned with suppressed rage. "Captain Nelson, you have placed both our species in an impossible situation. Commander, the situation is entirely of your making. Release the prisoners and submit to council inspection. The choice is simple." "Simple?" Vextar's voice rose. "You demand that the Zilithian Empire submit to inspection by inferior species? That we release valuable research subjects because primitive humans make threats? I demand that you follow the laws you agreed to when you joined the Galactic Council. Laws written by weak species to protect themselves from strong ones. The Zilithian Empire will not be bound by such restrictions." Steve had heard enough. "Commander, you have 4 hours to comply. After that, we will take whatever action is necessary." The transmission ended. Around the Liberty, the human fleet began final preparations for battle. In engineering sections throughout the fleet, human technicians made last-minute adjustments to weapons and defenses that had never been tested in real combat. Engineer Carol Jensen, now serving aboard the battlecruiser Independence, monitored power systems that merged technologies from 6 different species. The integration had been a nightmare of incompatible interfaces and conflicting requirements. But somehow human engineers had made it work. "All systems green," she reported to Captain Patricia Young. "Weapons, shields and engines operating at optimal efficiency. Carol, in your professional opinion, can we win this fight?" Carol looked at her displays showing power curves and system diagnostics. "Captain, our ships are untested but theoretically superior. Their ships are proven but predictable. If our theories are correct, we should dominate. If we're wrong, we all die together." "Yes, ma'am." 3 hours before the ultimatum expired, Colonel Linda Shaw's Phoenix reached the first prisoner facility. Her assault teams, led by Lieutenant Gary Thompson, prepared for what might be humanity's first ground combat against aliens. "Remember," Linda told her troops, We're not here to fight Zilithians. We're here to save prisoners. Get in. Get them out. Get back to the ship. The Phoenix descended through the planet's atmosphere, its stealth systems hiding it from Zilithian sensors. Below, the facility looked like a fortress surrounded by walls and guard towers, but human intelligence had identified weak points in the defenses. Lieutenant Thompson led his team through a maintenance tunnel that connected to the facility's power systems. 24 humans against an unknown number of Zilithian guards. The odds were familiar. Inside the facility, the humans found horrors beyond their worst expectations. Beings from dozens of species were kept in cells barely large enough to contain them. Many showed signs of surgical experimentation. Others were so weak they could barely stand. "Jesus," one of Thompson's soldiers whispered. "Stay focused," Thompson ordered. "We can be sick later. Right now, we save who we can." The rescue operation took 40 minutes. By the time Zilithian reinforcements arrived, the Phoenix was already climbing back into space with 137 freed prisoners aboard. Colonel Shaw looked at the medical reports streaming in from Dr. Martinez's staff. "How many can we save?" "Most of them with proper care. But Colonel, what they did to these people—" "I know, Doctor. Make sure everyone knows. Make sure the galaxy sees what we found." As the Phoenix rejoined the main fleet, High Commander Vextar received reports of the rescue operation. His response was swift and predictable. The Zilithian fleet began moving toward the human ships, weapons charging. "So much for diplomacy," Steve Nelson said quietly. Admiral Torres's voice came over the fleet communications channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres. The Zilithians have made their choice. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. Show them what humans can do when we're properly motivated." The first battle between humans and aliens began not with grand speeches or formal declarations, but with the simple recognition that some lines could not be crossed without consequences. As the two fleets accelerated toward each other, both sides learned that the galaxy was about to change forever. 3 hours after the failed negotiations, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova watching Zilithian warships surround his vessel. The aliens had not wasted any time making their intentions clear. 8 massive ships, each 3 times larger than the Terra Nova, held position around the human diplomatic vessel. Ambassador Lisa Carter paced behind Jake's command chair, her diplomatic composure finally cracking. "They can't do this. International law, galactic law, every law in the book says diplomatic vessels are protected. Tell that to them," Lieutenant Carol Jensen said from the communication station. "They're demanding we prepare to be boarded." Dr. Kevin Walsh sat at a corner console, frantically copying his research data onto portable drives. His hands shook as he worked, but his voice was steady. "If they take my research, they'll use it for their own purposes. 15 years of work helping other species, and they'll turn it into weapons." Engineer Tony Phillips looked up from his instruments. "Captain, their ships are charging weapons. Not targeting us directly, but making a show of power." Jake kept his expression calm, but inside he was calculating odds. The Terra Nova was a diplomatic vessel, lightly armed and built for comfort rather than combat. Against 8 Zilithian warships, they would last maybe 30 seconds in a real fight. "Open a channel to their flagship," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing High Commander Vextar's stone-gray face. His red eyes glowed with satisfaction as he looked at the surrounded human ship. "Captain Morrison, I trust you have considered our reasonable request." "Request?" Jake kept his voice level. "You mean your demand to illegally arrest a member of my crew? Dr. Walsh is a criminal under Zilithian law. Surrender him and your ship may depart unharmed." "And if I refuse?" Vextar's smile was cold. "Then we will take him by force. Your ship will be impounded. Your crew detained for harboring a fugitive. Earth will learn the cost of defying the Zilithian Empire." Jake looked around his bridge. Lisa shook her head slightly, telling him not to give in. Dr. Walsh had stopped copying files and was watching the screen with resignation. Carol and Tony waited for orders, ready to follow whatever decision their captain made. "You have 10 minutes to decide, Captain," Vextar continued. "After that, we will board your vessel and take what we came for." The channel closed, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "Suggestions?" Jake asked. "We could try to run," Tony said quietly. "Our engines are newer than theirs. We might outrun them." "Might isn't good enough," Carol replied. "If they catch us, they'll claim we were fleeing justice. That gives them excuse to destroy us completely. Dr. Walsh stood up, his decision made. I'll go with them. My research isn't worth starting a war. No, Lisa said firmly. The moment we give in to their demands, every human in space becomes a target. They'll know we can be bullied. Jake stared at the tactical display showing the Zilithian ships. 8 against 1 were impossible odds, but sometimes the impossible was the only option available. Carol, send a coded message to Earth. Full details of what happened here. Make sure they know this wasn't about illegal research. It was about the Zilithians showing us our place. Already sent, Captain. Use the diplomatic emergency channel. Good. Tony, what's our maximum speed? Warp 7, but only for short bursts. The engines weren't built for running battles. Jake nodded, then walked over to Dr. Walsh. Kevin, I need you to do something that might seem crazy. What? Delete everything. All your research, all your files. Everything the Zilithians want. Dr. Walsh looked horrified. Jake, that's 15 years of work. Medical breakthroughs that could help millions of people. Can you recreate it? Given time, yes. Most of it is in my head anyway. But the experimental data, the test results, can be reproduced, Lisa interrupted, understanding Jake's plan. Kevin, if they get that research, they won't use it to help people. They'll weaponize it or bury it to maintain their technological advantage. Dr. Walsh hesitated for a long moment, then sat back down at his console. Computer, initiate complete data purge. Authorization Walsh 77 Alpha. Data purge will take 6 minutes to complete, the computer replied in its calm voice. Captain, Carol called out. Incoming transmission from the Zilithian flagship. Put it through. Vextar appeared on screen again, his expression more aggressive. Your time is running short, Captain. Prepare to be boarded. Hi, Commander, I have a counter-proposal. Single combat between our champions. Winner takes all. The Zilithian looked surprised, then amused. Single combat? You would risk your entire crew on primitive ritual fighting? It's hardly primitive if you accept the challenge. Vextar laughed, the sound echoing across the bridge. Very well, Captain. Your death will serve as an example to other humans who think they can challenge Zilithian authority. The channel closed again. Jake turned to find his crew staring at him. Captain, Lisa said slowly, please tell me you have a plan. Sort of. Tony? Can you rig our shuttle bay for an explosive decompression? With enough warning, yes. Why? Because we're not fighting fair. Carol, start broadcasting on all frequencies. I want every ship in this system to know what's happening here. Broadcasting what? The truth. That the Zilithians are attacking a diplomatic vessel. That they're breaking every law of space to steal research that could help everyone. As Carol worked, Jake continued planning. Kevin, how long until the data purge is complete? 3 minutes. Perfect. Lisa, I need you to keep talking to other council species. Make sure they know we tried to negotiate in good faith. Jake, what are you really planning? Before Jake could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. On the tactical display, smaller ships were launching from the Zilithian vessels. Boarding craft, Tony reported. 12 of them, coming fast. Time to data purge completion? 2 minutes, too long. Carol, emergency broadcast to all human ships in this sector. Tell them what's happening here. There are only 3 other human vessels within range, Captain. Tell them anyway. The Terra Nova shook as docking clamps attached to its hull. Through the internal monitors, Jake could see armored Zilithian soldiers cutting through airlock doors with plasma torches. Data purge complete, Dr. Walsh announced. Good. Now comes the hard part. Everyone into the emergency pods, Captain? Carol looked confused. We're abandoning ship. Let them have the Terra Nova. There's nothing left on it they want anyway. But the ship is replaceable. We are not. As his crew reluctantly moved toward the emergency pods, Jake activated the ship's self-destruct sequence, not to explode immediately, but to activate if anyone tried to access the main computer without proper authorization. Jake, Lisa said as they reached the pod bay, this seems like we're running away. We are running away. Sometimes that's the smart thing to do. The emergency pods launched just as Zilithian soldiers reached the bridge. Jake watched through his pod's tiny window as the aliens discovered the empty ship. On his communication screen, he could see Vextar's face twisted with rage. You coward. Come back and face the consequences of your actions. I'm sure we'll meet again, Commander, Jake replied calmly. As the pods flew toward Harmony Point's docking bays, Jake opened a channel to Dr. Walsh. Kevin, was all your research really deleted? The doctor smiled for the first time in hours. The research they knew about, yes. But I've been working on some projects they never discovered. Projects that might prove very useful if this situation gets worse. What kind of projects? The kind that could level the playing field, Captain. The kind that could show the galaxy that humans are not as weak as everyone thinks. Jake looked back at the Terra Nova, now swarming with Zilithian soldiers who were discovering that their prize was worthless. Then maybe today wasn't a total loss after all. No, Captain. Today was the day the Zilithians made the worst mistake in their history. How so? Dr. Walsh's smile turned cold. They made humanity angry, and they have no idea what we're capable of when we're properly motivated. As the emergency pods docked at Harmony Point, Jake began planning their return to Earth. The Zilithians wanted to show humans their place in the galactic order. Soon they would learn that humans had very different ideas about where that place should be. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the Terra Nova, watching the massive space station grow larger as his ship approached. Harmony Point was the biggest structure he had ever seen, stretching for miles in every direction. Hundreds of ships from different worlds docked at its many ports. Some looked like giant metal flowers, others like crystal pyramids, and a few resembled nothing Jake could compare to anything from Earth. Ambassador Lisa Carter joined him at the window. She wore her best diplomatic uniform, the dark blue fabric pressed and perfect. Her face showed the confidence that had made her Earth's top negotiator, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. This meeting would decide if humanity got the resources they desperately needed for their growing colonies. Nervous? Jake asked quietly. Lisa shook her head. Just focused. The Zilithians control the richest mining systems in this sector. If we can secure trading rights, our colonies won't have to struggle for basic materials anymore. The Terra Nova shuddered slightly as the docking clamps engaged. Through the station's transparent aluminum walls, Jake could see other species going about their business. Tall, thin beings with too many arms walked alongside short, round creatures that rolled rather than walked. The diversity was amazing but also intimidating. Dr. Kevin Walsh, Earth's best expert on alien life, hurried up to them carrying his research tablets. His usually messy hair was combed back, and he had actually put on a clean lab coat for the occasion. The cultural briefings are complete, Ambassador. The Zilithians value directness and strength. They see politeness as weakness, Lisa nodded. Then we'll be direct. Earth needs those mining rights, and we have technology and resources to trade. The airlock hissed open and a Harmony Point security officer entered. The alien looked like a blue-skinned human, except for the extra pair of eyes on the sides of his head. Ambassador Carter, the Zilithian delegation is ready to receive you in Conference Hall 7. As they walked through the station's corridors, Jake noticed how other aliens looked at them. Some seemed curious, others indifferent, but a few showed what looked like contempt. Humans were still newcomers to galactic society, having only made contact 15 years ago. Most species saw them as primitive and unimportant. Conference Hall 7 was enormous, with a curved ceiling that showed the stars outside. At the far end, the Zilithian delegation waited. High Commander Vextar was impossible to miss. He stood over 8 feet tall, with gray skin that looked like stone and eyes that glowed red. His military uniform was covered in medals and symbols that probably represented victories in countless battles. Beside him stood 3 other Zilithians, all nearly as tall and intimidating. They wore the same gray uniforms but with fewer decorations. Behind them, a dozen soldiers in full armor stood at attention, their weapons visible but not drawn. Lisa walked forward with her small team. Besides Jake and Dr. Walsh, she had brought only 2 other humans. Lieutenant Carol Jensen, a military advisor, and engineer Tony Phillips, who understood the technical aspects of what they hoped to trade. High Commander Vextar, Lisa said, offering a slight bow. Thank you for agreeing to these negotiations. Earth is honored by your presence. Vextar's glowing eyes fixed on her, and his mouth curved in what might have been a smile on a human face. On his alien features, it looked more like a snarl. Ambassador Carter, we have heard of your species. Young, weak, limited to a single star system until very recently. The insult was clear, but Lisa kept her expression neutral. Youth can bring fresh perspectives, Commander. Earth may be new to galactic society, but we have much to offer. Do you? Vextar's voice was deep and harsh. What could a species that has barely left its homeworld possibly offer the Zilithian Empire? Dr. Walsh stepped forward. Our research into biological adaptation has produced medical advances that could benefit many species. We've also developed new methods for deep space mining that increase efficiency by 40%. One of the other Zilithians, a female with the same gray skin but smaller build, laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Mining techniques from a species that has mined exactly 3 asteroids. How impressive. Jake felt his anger rising but kept quiet. This was Lisa's show, and she was better at handling diplomatic insults than he was. Lisa opened her briefcase and pulled out several data tablets. Perhaps these technical specifications will be more convincing than words, Commander. Vextar made no move to take the tablets. Instead, he looked at his companions and said something in the Zilithian language. It sounded harsh and guttural. The other Zilithians laughed. Commander, Lisa said, her voice slightly sharper. We came here in good faith to discuss mutually beneficial trade agreements. Good faith? Vextar's red eyes blazed brighter. You speak of good faith while your species spreads through space like a disease, establishing colonies without permission, taking resources that belong to more advanced civilizations. Our colonies are in unclaimed systems, Lieutenant Jensen interrupted, then caught Lisa's warning glance and fell silent. Unclaimed by whom? The female Zilithian asked. By primitive species too weak to properly explore their own region of space? The Zilithian Empire has prior claim to all resources in this sector. Lisa's diplomatic training kept her voice level. The Galactic Council recognizes the right of all species to expand into unoccupied territory. The Council, Vextar spat. A collection of weak species that hide behind laws because they lack the strength to take what they need. The Zilithian Empire does not bow to such weakness. The meeting was clearly not going as hoped, but Lisa pressed on. Commander, our proposals could benefit both our peoples. Earth's agricultural techniques could help feed your growing population. Our medical research could extend Zilithian lifespans. We do not need charity from upstart primitives, Vextar said, rising from his chair. His full height was even more intimidating. This meeting is over. Wait, Dr. Walsh said urgently. At least look at our research. The medical applications alone could save millions of lives across all species. Vextar's expression turned dangerous. Dr. Walsh, is it? Your reputation precedes you. The galactic community knows of your experiments on alien tissue samples. Illegal research by Zilithian law. Jake saw Dr. Walsh go pale. The research had been conducted on samples freely given by alien volunteers, but apparently the Zilithians saw it differently. That research was conducted with full consent and approval, Lisa said quickly. All galactic protocols were followed. Zilithian protocols were not, the female commander said. Any research conducted on biological material from species under Zilithian protection requires our approval. Approval that was never requested. The trap was now obvious. The Zilithians had never intended to negotiate. They had used the meeting to create a legal justification for whatever they planned to do next. We were unaware of any Zilithian claim on the volunteer subjects, Lisa said carefully. If there was a misunderstanding, we can address it through proper diplomatic channels. Vexitar smiled again, and this time it was definitely predatory. There will be no diplomatic channels, Ambassador. You will surrender Dr. Walsh and all his research to Zilithian custody immediately. Absolutely not, Jake said, stepping forward. Dr. Walsh is under Earth's protection. Captain Morrison, Vextar said, somehow knowing Jake's name without being told. Your primitive warship poses no threat to Zilithian forces. You will comply or face the consequences. Lisa raised her hand to stop Jake from responding. High Commander, threatening diplomatic personnel is a violation of galactic law. Galactic law does not apply to criminals, the female Zilithian replied. And by harboring a criminal, your entire delegation has forfeited diplomatic immunity. Around the conference room, Jake noticed that more Zilithian soldiers had entered. They now surrounded the human delegation completely. The situation had gone from diplomatic disaster to potential hostage crisis in minutes. This is not over, Lisa said quietly, gathering her papers. Earth will not forget this treatment, Vextar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Earth will learn its place in the galactic order, Ambassador. Today's lesson is that humans are insects, annoying, but easily crushed when they become troublesome. As the human delegation was escorted out under guard, Jake made a mental note of every Zilithian face in the room. Lisa was right. This was not over. The battle lasted 18 hours and changed the galaxy forever. Captain Steve Nelson watched from the Liberty's bridge as the final Zilithian ships surrendered. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, professional even in victory. The tactical display showed the results. 37 human ships still operational, 212 Zilithian vessels either destroyed, disabled, or surrendering. Captain Lieutenant Danny Murphy reported, "High Commander Vextar is requesting direct communication. Put him through." The main screen showed Vextar aboard what remained of his flagship. The proud Zilithian commander looked broken, his gray skin darker and his red eyes dim. Behind him, smoke drifted through his damaged bridge. "Captain Nelson," Vextar said quietly, "I formally surrender all Zilithian forces in this system. Commander, do you also surrender access to all prisoner facilities and research data?" "Yes." "And do you acknowledge the authority of the Galactic Council to investigate Zilithian activities?" Vextar hesitated, then nodded. "The Zilithian Empire accepts Council authority in this matter." Steve felt no satisfaction in the victory. Too many beings had died, both human and alien, for this moment to feel like celebration. "Commander, prepare your facilities for inspection. Medical teams will arrive within the hour." The transmission ended. Around the bridge, Steve's officers maintained their professional calm, but he could see the relief in their faces. They had survived humanity's first interstellar war. Admiral Susan Torres's voice came over the fleet channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres. Stand down from combat alert. Begin rescue and recovery operations immediately." On the planet's surface, Colonel Linda Shaw coordinated the liberation of 17 prison facilities. Her teams, now reinforced with medical personnel and volunteers from other species, worked around the clock to free prisoners and document the evidence of Zilithian crimes. Dr. Frank Martinez found himself treating injuries he had never seen before. Surgical scars that spoke of experiments no ethical being would conduct. Psychological trauma from years of captivity and abuse. "Malnutrition and disease from deliberate neglect, how many?" Linda asked as she toured the largest facility. "Over 4,000 prisoners across all sites," Dr. Martinez replied. "Some have been here for decades. The oldest is a Centauri trader who was captured 37 years ago. Will they recover?" "Physically, most will. Psychologically, that will take longer. But Colonel, they're free now. For the first time in years or decades, they're free." 3 weeks later, President Helen Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Council in the Great Assembly Hall on Harmony Point. The chamber held representatives from over 200 species, and every eye was focused on the human leader. "Members of the Council," President Rodriguez began, "humanity did not seek this conflict. We came to the galaxy in peace, seeking trade and friendship. We were met with contempt and aggression." She activated a holographic display showing footage from the liberated facilities. The images were difficult to watch, but the galaxy needed to see them. What you see here is the result of decades of unchecked power. The Zilithian Empire believed their strength gave them the right to torture and experiment on other sentient beings. They believed no one would challenge them. The Andromedan representative, a tall being with crystalline features, stood up. President Rodriguez, humanity's military response was unprecedented. "How do we know you won't use this same force against others who displease you?" President Rodriguez had expected this question. "Ambassador Kristen, examine our actions. We could have destroyed the Zilithian homeworld. We could have demanded territory or tribute. Instead, we freed prisoners and turned evidence over to this council for proper judgment." The Rigel clan representative, a warrior species that had fought alongside humans in the final battles, spoke next. "The humans fight with honor. They show mercy to defeated enemies. They protect the weak. These are worthy allies." But not everyone was convinced. The Epsilon Collective, a trading alliance that had benefited from Zilithian protection, remained skeptical. President Rodriguez, their representative, said, "Your secret fleet suggests humanity has been preparing for war all along. How can we trust species that hide their true capabilities?" "Ambassador Veclon, we prepared for the possibility that diplomacy might fail. Events proved that preparation was necessary. But notice that we revealed these capabilities only when forced to defend innocent lives." Ambassador Lisa Carter, now Earth's permanent representative to the Council, presented the formal resolution. The human government proposes the establishment of a galactic protection force, with representatives from all willing species, to prevent future atrocities like those committed by the Zilithian Empire. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The evidence was overwhelming, and humanity had proven their point with overwhelming force. When the vote came, the resolution passed by a margin of 3-1. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new diplomatic vessel Unity, watching construction crews work on Harmony Point's expanded facilities. The station was growing to accommodate the new Galactic Protection Force headquarters. Dr. Kevin Walsh joined him at the viewing port. The scientist looked healthier than he had in months, his research now being used to help the freed prisoners recover from their ordeals. "Hard to believe how much has changed," Dr. Walsh said. "The galaxy had to learn that there are consequences for cruelty," Jake replied. "Unfortunately, the lesson came at a high cost. Do you think it will stick? Will other species remember what happened here?" Jake smiled grimly. "Kevin, every species in the galaxy now knows what humans are capable of when we're pushed too far. Some will see that as a threat. Others will see it as protection, but none of them will make the mistake of thinking we're weak." In the months that followed, the galaxy settled into a new order. The Zilithian Empire was restructured under Council oversight, its military reduced and its research programs monitored. High Commander Vextar and his senior officers were tried for crimes against sentient beings. Other species began approaching Earth with new respect. Trade agreements were signed on equal terms. Military cooperation treaties were established. The Andromedan Republic requested human advisors for their defense forces. The Centauri Federation asked for human engineers to improve their ship designs. President Rodriguez, in her final address to the Earth Global Assembly, reflected on humanity's journey. "We came to the stars seeking our place in the galactic community. We found that place not through submission or aggression, but by standing up for principles that matter. We showed the galaxy that strength without justice is tyranny, but justice without strength is meaningless." The speech was broadcast across human space and beyond. On colonies throughout the galaxy, humans and aliens worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old order. Research stations studied diseases that affected multiple species. Defense platforms protected trade routes used by all, but perhaps the most important change was in how other species viewed humanity. No longer were humans seen as primitive newcomers to be dismissed or exploited. They were recognized as a force for stability and protection in a galaxy that had grown too comfortable with injustice. High Commander Vextar, serving his sentence in a council rehabilitation facility, was interviewed by Galactic Media 1 year after his surrender. The reporter asked if he regretted his actions. "I regret underestimating them," Vextar said quietly. "We saw humans as weak because they were few in number and new to space. We failed to understand that some species become more dangerous when threatened, not less. We pushed them too far. What would you have done differently?" Vextar's red eyes, now dimmed by defeat and reflection, stared at nothing. "I would have remembered that the most dangerous opponent is one with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Humans had both justice on their side and the will to enforce it. That combination proved decisive." The interview became required viewing in military academies throughout the galaxy. It served as a reminder of the most expensive lesson in galactic history. Never mistake human restraint for weakness, and never give them reason to show you the difference. In Earth's capital, a memorial was built to honor those who died in humanity's first interstellar war. The inscription, written in dozens of languages, carried a simple message. They died so that others might be free. Let no one forget the price of liberty. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humans were no longer the newcomers to be dismissed or the primitives to be exploited. They were the species that would fight for justice even against impossible odds and win.